The album's original and reimagined cover art is based on Leonardo da Vinci's Vitruvian Man drawing. To some people, it represents the perfect proportions of a human being. Would you consider Clayman to be a good representation of those things in that time, a well-balanced mix of melody and intensity?
Well, for the time, it was the perfect balance. I mean, we had started touring a couple of records before, and you learn so much from touring. What arrangements work, where to put the melodies and dynamics in a song and everything. So at the time, yeah, I think it was the best we could be at the time. And working with Fredrik, it was the last one we did with him, Fredrik Nordström. He knew us really well, so he could push us pretty good. Even though I think he turned into an old guy by then. He had a couple of kids and wanted to work like office hours. And we couldn't really live with that. But it really turned out really good in the end.
Can you describe the reimagined album artwork? Who created it and how it represents the theme of the album?
Yeah, I've seen bits and pieces of it. And Blake Armstrong, who's done the last couple of album covers and a bunch of artwork for T-shirts and stuff, he's just amazing. He's a huge fan, and that helps. When he saw the opportunity here, I think he was just very happy, and it looked like he had been thinking about this for a while. You know, what if I got to do that? And he just did a killer job. It's just fresh, it's a bit darker. We used to work with a guy called Andreas Marshall, who did at least Jester Ace Oracle and Colony he did. And I think he's an original, classical painter, oils and acrylics and stuff. But this, on Clayman, I think it was a guy that worked at the record label. And as far as I remember, he might have been an intern or something. That, yeah, it's the cover, you can do it. And I remember us not being super happy about it, because it kind of looked a bit like Photoshop. But this time around, it feels more like it's painted. And it really fits into what we've done lately, and also it's a nice reimagination of that cover.
What did you want to achieve by updating the artwork?
It's fitting, and I think it should be updated. We haven't really re-recorded all of it, but we've done some songs that we play live, more up to date with kind of how we sound nowadays. And why not do the cover as well? I mean, there's numerous different pressings and releases and remasterings out there with the original artwork. So I figured do something proper. We haven't celebrated any of the other records, and this is coming up on 20 years now. So I figured let's do it properly once and see how it is. Maybe we'll never do it again, I don't know.
What makes Blake's art so special to you, and what inspired you to work together?
He's a fan of the band, and I think that means he digs a little bit deeper. He has his own ideas around songs and concepts and stuff like that. So he can really, really express that and really impress you and sometimes put you in a different direction than you thought in your own head. When we did I the Mask, he came to our little writing cabin where we were sitting writing everything between the studio sessions. And he could hear the demos, and he started working on the cover art right away. And stuff that he came back with kind of inspired songs and ideas and stuff. And it's really cool to see him work. He's super fast. So he comes one day, listens to a couple of riffs, and comes back the next day, and he's got a whole concept done. That's why it's so fun to work with him. And he's a cool dude. He likes beer.
How did you pick the songs to re-record, and what was the reason behind re-recording them?
When we started thinking about this project, there's a few ways you can do it. So either you re-record the whole thing, or you bring the old files back and remix them, or you just remaster, or you do as we pick the songs that we normally play live or have played the last couple of years, because they kind of fit into the live set that we have nowadays. So it was a matter of us picking a few, and then we just added, and it turned out to be, I think, 4 in the end, plus a professional medley made by a real musician. Yeah, we didn't want to re-record the whole thing. I mean, it is what it is, and it was special at the time, and I think it sounds good the way it does. So,
what did you do differently when re-recording these songs?
We've been working with Howard and his team, Howard Benson and his team, for 2 records now, and so we kind of know each other pretty well. Technology has moved forward a lot We saved a lot of time. We didn't have to go through 55 amps to find whatever we were looking for. We had sort of the sound in mind already. My guess is that we were way more efficient, and the songs were written, and that saves obviously a lot of time. We didn't want to deviate too much from the original, but at the same time we wanted to portray how they sound now, and also add a little bit something, just for fun.
How has the evolution of technology helped in 2020 compared to the year 2000?
Well, back then we used Pro Tools, I think, back then as well. So editing and cutting and all that stuff, it was pretty straightforward, pretty much as today. But I think sound-wise, it's improved so much. Back then, I think you were still discussing if it was good enough or if you still wanted to do some stuff analog. And I kind of like the new way of doing it because it's really quick and it doesn't take away from the creative process, because you don't have to sit and wait for shit to happen. And I like that. I'd rather be very inspired throughout the whole session than sit and wait for 4 hours between, moving a mic, finding the right cab, all that stuff. So that has certainly improved. But there's something, obviously, if you want to be romantic about it, that 2-inch tape obviously smells, feels, and sounds a little bit different. The old discs and everything they were actual discs, the sound went through it. Not like today when there's basically big remote controls for the computer. I like the way you can really get the essence of what you want to do and not be tired because of technical shit.
Can you please tell us about the instrumental track Themes and Variations in D minor? Who composed it and what is its significance to the album?
Yeah, so it's a guy called Johannes Bergion. We worked with him numerous times, and we just kept hanging out. And we brought him and some of his friends on tour. When we did the In Our Room tour, we had a quartet, I believe, of strings with us, and it just worked. It just gave the whole arrangement of the songs a new dimension, which was really cool. And it's fun to have proper musicians around as well. You learn a lot from it. When this idea came up, this project that we should celebrate Clayman, I just asked him if he wanted to do something and maybe find some of the melodies, some of the ideas, and put together a little piece that we can have as an extra track, as a bonus track. And it turned out to be a whole, I think it's parts of every song on the album. And it's really smartly written and played by himself. And it's recorded by Roberto Loghi, who did a couple of records with us. That was a fun reunion as well at Top Floor Studios here in Gothenburg. I didn't know how similar that kind of recording could be to a metal recording. You listen to different things, obviously, but the actual process is pretty much the same. And that was kind of cool.
What impact did the recording on Clayman have?
Well, it was the last time we worked with Fredrik, for good and bad. I think we'd reached a point where we were sort of done with each other. I mean, it was the same for him, obviously. This is not a one-way thing. And we wanted to do something different after that. But I don't know if it had any impact, the actual studio time by itself. And this is 20 years ago. This is almost half a lifetime ago. So it's hard to remember everything. I remember me and Jesper working pretty much on our own when it came to recording the guitars. And I wasn't really involved in much of the other stuff at that time.
Maybe that time in the studio itself, made you want to do things differently the next time.
Yeah, I mean, I think every record in a way teaches you what not to do. And these are all taste things. I mean, next time we shouldn't use that amp, or it could be small shit like that, or maybe we should just move on, find somebody else to work with, or maybe we need to rethink everything fundamentally and do something else. If it had an impact, I don't know. I think that was brewing for a longer time. Like, it was time to move on. And I think we all felt that. And it wasn't a bad parting or anything. It was just natural. In my imagination, I might be wrong, but I think it was.
Would you consider the album a turning point in the band's career?
I think Clayman itself, and that's something we said, it's very hi-fi. I mean, it's very clean and it's very polished. And maybe that's why we did Reroute to Remain after, and that's not very polished. I love the way it sounds. It sounded good in a car. It sounded great on, headphones or big speakers or back then.
Do you remember what challenges you faced when recording it?
We had done by that time a couple of albums, and we always sort of had our own way of doing things and not really paying attention to producers or people that actually knew what they were talking about. And sometimes the recordings have been somewhat lacking because of that. But I can remember, like for instance, I mentioned before that me and Jesper would sit a lot of times by ourselves. And I mean, we pushed each other, but to always have somebody from the outside pushing you a bit, it's not bad. But we weren't ready for it back then. So a lot of takes we had to do again the next day. Fredrik came in and listened, this is shit, and then we had to redo it. So, and that's part of what I don't like, because redoing stuff that you've been working pretty hard, hours and hours, and maybe days sometimes to get something like to where you want it, and then having to redo that again or do the same riff, 2 hours straight. I fucking hate that. That's not why I'm in the band, Want to not move on, but you want to get somewhere,
The band toured extensively during the Clayman album cycle, even releasing the Tokyo Showdown live album. How much of an impact did touring during this time play a role in your success?
I think it's really the essence of who we are and what we do. It's playing live. It depends on who you ask, I think. If you ask Anders, he probably says, I love everything about it. I love the recording process. I love this, and this is as important. But for me, I think the live experience is really where we, in my opinion, shine. And this is where I have the most fun. I think this is where we sound the best with all the flaws and everything. And it's what we've done extensively after every album, I have to say, probably after Clayman, right before Clayman, and then onwards. It's really touring what we do. So the live shows, and they mean the world to me. We learn so much from it. I learned so much from it, like where to put, we talked about it briefly earlier, like dynamics in the song, how to arrange a song so it works and is nice to the ear, and also how to put together set lists, and that goes back to how you put together a playlist on a record and all that stuff. So yeah, it's absolutely fundamental for us, and it's the most fun part. I know that we've been here for a long time. We've done a bunch of records, and hopefully it's inspired or at least given that little seed or embryo of thought that could put something in a different direction. So that is very cool, and something that we're really proud of.